fix going into 2020?
Very well. For me, Trevor, it would be on one of the themes that you mentioned on the issue of corruption. We are starting, or we actually started to see the arrest of the so-called big fish. Yeah. 3 big fish were arrested. I have in mind Moses Lenol. I also have in mind Waitito. I have in mind the recent arrest of Governor Sonko. And 2019 has been a very dramatic year in that sense. Yeah. But we want to go beyond the high drama of arresting these so-called big fish to seeing convictions. So a good start in the fight against corruption, because Kenyans have always asked for the war to really touch on all spectrums of society. So that's a good point for me for 2019. In terms of human rights, from where I sit, I can't stop let me start by saying that for us at the Commission, this is a big year because this is our final year in office. My colleagues and the other commissioners, this is a final year in office, so it's a big year, but there are big things that we've taken away 2019, one of them being a very critical MOU that we signed with the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. That's going to be very useful for us as we move forward in collecting data, especially in line with the SDGs goal of leaving no one behind.
Yeah. Yes. All right, Sheila?
I'll talk about corruption. I think it's still something of where we see a lot of fits and starts. And we started the year on a high with the National Anti-Corruption Conference, the big one at Bomas, organized by the Multi-Sectoral Initiative Against Corruption. And there are lots of commitments made, but then I keep on asking myself, when do we move beyond commitments to action? And remember, one of the directives that was given at that conference was on the conflict of interest, which was revisited last week when the president made his speech on Jamhuri Day. And it's taken a whole year. That's understandable. I know to develop a legislation takes a long time, but we really want to see something coming out of it, because when you look at a lot of the big cases on corruption this year, lots of them touch on conflict of interest, you know, where someone is trading, running a public institution and trading with his own private company or his spouse's or children's private company. Or we have many cases of also public procurement which touch on conflict of interest. So we'd like to actually ensure that the provisions on conflict of interest, which are currently also included in Chapter 6 of the Constitution, if you look at the section under the state conduct of state officers, it talks about conflict of interest, and that the private interest should not trump public or official interests. So that's a matter of concern. I think the other thing, Morara has spoken about the high-ranking government officials. We had the CS, Treasury, and the PS, and the 3 governors who have been arraigned in court, and the cases are ongoing. And yes, it's good to see the arrest. It's good to see that prosecution happening. But at the end of it, Kenyans just want to see the results. What we're waiting for is the results. We need to see attendant, jail terms at the end of it, and recovery of resources lost. I think that's when we can shout and sing that, we are actually doing something in the fight against corruption.
All right, Kevin?
Trevor, how are you? I think they've said it all, because from where I sit and engaging with county governments, to see governors actually being arraigned in court and citizens not going and saying, release our thief, this is our person, and we are standing by our so-and-so, the big fish. I think that was one of the biggest things that for me is really transformational, as opposed to what we've seen in the past, where individuals are arrested and we want to make them look like those are communal baggage, or they stole on behalf of the community. The second issue to that is that institutions are now coming out to really want to explore the reason as to why they exist. I think the DPP has been very categorical. DCI has been doing quite, in my view, a good job. ESCC, coming from 2018, where we thought it was a toothless dog, I think the impotence and the zeal that has been drawn from DCI and DPP. So basically for me, I think that corruption has been one of the biggest highlights. The political goodwill, His Excellency the President coming up and saying, I will not pick any phone call from any corrupt official. And that, I think, really is, in my view, a positive gesture. The handshake, March 8th, I think in the history of this country, that to me, again, was a high, because we had for the first time, I think, an opportunity now to reflect on what governance means, what leadership is, and what politics really is supposed to be. And for these two people who historically have been the perennial, in my view again, perennial weak links in our politics, and they came forward and said this handshake is supposed to now trickle down, and people have had the opportunity, and we hope that we'll continue to reflect on what leadership and governance is supposed to be. One of the laws for me, 90 days without devolution working on at the county levels, was really a terrible picture for this country. And I think that the stalemate that existed between the National Assembly and the Senate should not have been there. But the beauty of it, Trevor, I think, is that it gives us, or it gave us an opportunity to reflect on some of the gaps that exist in our Constitution. Yeah. And so that moving forward, we can reflect on what is it that we really need to fix. Because then when we do not have funds, because going to the counties, because we do not have the division of revenue allocation bill that is supposed to effect that, to be able to see resources and then service delivery being undertaken at the county levels. I think that was a real low for me, 90 days without devolution working. But the beauty again is that now we have the opportunity to reflect on what is the gap and how do we fix it.
And how do we fix it?
Yeah.
Bishop.
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. I think my colleagues have said a lot of it. Mine would be three. First is the corruption, the fact that we've been able to address a few deep-seated, you may say, root causes of corruption. But I'll turn it around, and that this time, and especially from the church front, from where I see it, is that we have not only sought to look at the societal, just the conviction or judicial part of the corruption, but about a cultural change on the views of corruption. And I think we've made some traction this year in trying, and we've seen a lot of Kenyan citizens actually coming up to what, for example, the decisions of the Catholic Church as regards measures that not only arise from institutional setting, but arise from a personal self-examination and a call-up and a weakening of the conscience. Second thing that I think has also been is this intent to come back to address one deep-seated problem, which is ethnicity